Good evening, my friends. Try to imagine this for a moment. Everything you know freezes overnight. The power grid collapses. Pipes burst. Streets disappear beneath several meters of snow. Temperature is no longer a harmless number on a weather app. It becomes a countdown hanging above everyone's head at -76 degrees Fahrenheit. In a world of white silence, every second of survival turns into a naked struggle against the laws of physics. Tonight, you are a survivor, living off knowledge, memory, and instinct. You will build a warm island inside a concrete ruins. Now, find a comfortable position, turn off the lights, put your phone away. Let the room sink into a darkness made for thinking. Ready? Take one deep breath with me. Let's enter tonight's story. That December afternoon, the air carried a strange metallic smell, like the dry friction of a massive machine grinding to a halt. You were in your semi-basement workshop, located beneath a mixed-use building in the city's old industrial district. In your hand was a grease-stained rag, scrubbing hard at the flywheel of a diesel generator you'd scavenged from a recycling yard. This roughly 650 square foot space was your entire fortress in the city. Old car batteries were stacked along the walls, discarded circuit boards, coils of tangled copper wire, and the air circulation system you had assembled yourself. It was only 2 p.m., but without checking your phone, you couldn't tell whether it was day or night. Outside the high basement window, the light had turned into a murky yellow-grey haze, the color of old newspapers left too long in the sun. You were no stranger to extreme environments. As a former urban explorer and disaster content creator, you'd been to the edges of Chernobyl, crawled through abandoned fallout shelters, and learned to trust the instinctive danger radar built into your bones. But today felt different. This wasn't cold, it was silence, an unnatural silence, so complete it swallowed even the distant hum of traffic that usually seeped through the streets. Your phone screen suddenly lit up, shattering the stillness, a mandatory weather alert. You glanced at it and frowned. The message was short, but the urgency between the lines stabbed your nerves like a needle. The National Weather Service predicted a polar air mass sweeping across the city within 12 hours. The outdoor temperature was currently 41 degrees Fahrenheit. By nightfall, it would drop below 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and over the next week, it would continue to fall fast. For an ordinary office worker, this would mean a quick run to the grocery store, grabbing bags of rice, or buying another winter coat. But you weren't ordinary. Your gaze drifted past the phone to the half-repaired generator. Experience told you something most people never realized. In extreme cold, hunger doesn't kill first. That takes months. What kills immediately is indoor temperature. Once the power grid fails overloaded, or frozen solid people living in high-rise concrete boxes become frozen meat in a refrigerator. You didn't hesitate. You tossed the rag onto the table, grabbed your truck keys and a heavy-duty winter shell, and ran out. The moment you stepped into the stairwell, an icy draft, sliced across your neck, raising goosebumps instantly. The sky was terrifyingly low. Clouds pressed down like a lid, suffocating. Pedestrians hurried along the sidewalks, most of them unaware of what was coming. They just hunched their shoulders, complaining about the sudden weather shift. You drove your modified second-hand pickup truck straight past the overcrowded supermarkets and slammed the steering wheel toward an industrial hardware market on the city's outskirts. You drove fast, too fast. You ran a yellow light just before it turned red. Your hands clenched the wheel, palms slick with cold sweat. That tightening feeling returned, as if an invisible hand were winding the spring around your heart. At the hardware store, the owner was lazily watching a daytime soap opera. "I need 2 drums of diesel, premium grade." Your voice was hoarse. Fast, the owner blinked, stood up slowly. "What's all this for? It's freezing out there." You ignored the small talk and rattled off your list like a machine. Industrial weather stripping. All you've got. High-density insulation. Foam everything in the warehouse. 3 sets of 12-volt deep-cycle lead-acid batteries, fully charged. The man stared at you like you were insane, but he liked insane people. They paid without arguing. You watched your bank balance drop hard, but felt a strange sense of calm. As you loaded the heavy supplies into the truck bed, snow began to fall. Not flakes, tiny shards of ice. You stopped by a familiar outdoor gear shop next. By now the news had exploded. Group chats were filled with temperature alerts. Panic spread online like a virus. Inside the store, people were tearing through racks of down jackets and disposable heat packs. You avoided the crowd and went straight to the fuel aisle. You cleared the shelves of portable propane canisters and solid fuel tablets. As you rolled your overloaded cart past the checkout, a woman in a designer wool coat screamed into her phone. Furious, she couldn't find the exact brand of goose-down jacket she wanted. You glanced at her coldly. Without heat, even the most expensive down coat was just the final layer of a wet shroud at -60. By the time you passed the food section, it was already stripped bare. Instant noodles, processed meats, rice. Gone in a hidden corner near the floor, you spotted a case of high cocoa dark chocolate and several boxes of military-style compressed biscuits. Whether someone wanted them or not didn't matter. You took them. The drive home was brutal. Snow thickened. Black ice formed instantly. Your truck skidded, tires screeching. Outside the windshield, the world lost its color, swallowed by grey-white chaos. Near a waste transfer station, you noticed a dark shape moving in the storm. Normally, you would have driven past. Stray animals weren't rare, but today, maybe it was the coming numbness, or the thought that loneliness might break you before hunger did. You braked. The truck shuddered to a stop. Cold air flooded the cab like knives. It was a German shepherd, skin and bones. One hind leg injured, curled inside a pile of cardboard. Frost coated its fur. Its eyes were half open, no bleeding. just the dull emptiness of something already halfway gone. A former working dog, the collar marks were still visible. "Hey," you called. A weak whimper. You sighed, pulled a spare insulated jacket from the truck and wrapped it around the dog. It was heavy, big frame, still carried the weight of a strong animal. When you lifted it into the passenger seat, the smell of wet fur, dirt, and ice filled your nose. You turned the heater to max. "Tank," you muttered. "That's your name now. Like a tank, tough enough to survive." Tank's presence warmed the cab with something alive. For the first time all day, your nerves loosened. You didn't know if saving him was a mistake. In a world of scarcity, another mouth meant more danger. But now, and later, you needed the company. You returned to the basement at 7 p.m. outside temperature, 10 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping fast. In just hours it had plunged nearly 40 degrees. You parked behind the building, hidden, and hauled supplies inside like an ant. Your fingers stiffened. Your breath crystallized. Each inhale felt like shards of glass. When the last load was inside, you slammed the reinforced door shut and locked all 3 bolts. No rest. Before the world froze completely, you had to turn this place into a survival capsule. You pulled out the industrial weather stripping and high-density insulation foam and went to work like a man possessed. First, you sealed every crack around the basement windows. You knew this would make the air stale, but warmth came first. There was no alternative. Next, you cut the insulation into large panels and fixed them to the walls and the ceiling using construction adhesive and a nail gun. It was exhausting, monotonous work. Sweat ran down your back, only to cool instantly in the cold air, clinging uncomfortably to your skin. Tank lay on an old rug in the corner. He had recovered a bit of strength now, watching you quietly with dark, alert eyes. His tail twitching occasionally. The advantages of a semi-basement revealed themselves at last. Normally damp, dark, and unwanted, this space sat mostly below ground, protected by natural geothermal insulation. Unlike high-rise apartments exposed on all sides, if sealed properly, this place became a natural thermos. By the time you finished, it was midnight. You checked your phone. Every news app notification had turned a shocking dark red. Schools citywide closed. Businesses shut down. Buses and subways suspended. Social media was flooded. Frozen windows. No heat. People begging for space heaters. In the building's resident group chat, messages flew. What's going on? Why is the heat cold? Where's property management? This weather with no heat. Are they trying to kill us? Our window just cracked. Does anyone have duct tape? The grocery store downstairs closed. I don't even have water. You felt nothing. No sympathy. Just a cold, razor-sharp clarity. You walked to the generator, filled it with diesel, and checked the exhaust. You had routed the exhaust pipe into an abandoned chimney shaft. and added sound dampening. In the chaos to come, noise would attract trouble. You boiled a pot of noodles, threw in 2 hot dogs, a big bowl for yourself, a metal tray for Tank. The hot food settled in your stomach, pushing the dread back. For now, you woke up freezing. Despite sleeping under 2 heavy blankets, the cold slipped into the bed like a ghost. Shivering, you reached for your phone. No signal, but that didn't matter. Years ago, you'd installed Bluetooth thermometers to monitor indoor-outdoor temperature differences. You opened the app, -18 degrees Fahrenheit. You stared at the number for 2 full seconds. Overnight, a temperate city had turned polar. The room was dark, apocalyptic, each breath condensed into thick white clouds. Indoor temperature, 37 degrees Fahrenheit, cold but survivable. You heard muffled footsteps upstairs, faint crying through thick concrete. The sounds felt distant, unreal. You knew what that meant. For those above ground, last night had been hell. You pulled on your heavy Arctic parka, tactical gloves, and began inspections. Water first. You turned the faucet. Nothing. Only trapped air hissing. Frozen pipes expected. In the corner, you checked the buckets and tubs you'd filled the night before. Over 30 gallons of tap water, plus several cases of bottled water. Rationed carefully, enough for you and Tank for 2 months. Electricity next. You flipped the switch, nothing. Blackout. The game had officially begun. You pulled the generator cord. The engine coughed, then roared. You throttled it down to minimum, just enough to charge batteries and power essential low-wattage systems. Emergency lights flickered on. The smell of diesel exhaust felt oddly comforting. Tank padded over, pressed his head against your leg. You ran a hand through his coarse fur, feeling the warmth of a living body. Over the next 3 days, the temperature dropped like a runaway elevator. -31 degrees Fahrenheit, -40 degrees Fahrenheit, -49 degrees Fahrenheit. The world outside transformed completely. Through the ventilation port, you scanned the street with a periscope. Snow buried everything. Cars became white mounds. Street lights grew long icicles, like upside-down swords. Occasionally, you saw people wrapped in layers, struggling through drifts. Each step a battle. They didn't walk so much as claw forward, like drowning in solidified mud. Your life settled into routine. Wake up, check temperatures, refuel generator, check batteries, feed Tank. Wait, you weren't completely cut off. As a radio hobbyist, your concealed antenna still picked up signals. On the radio, official broadcasts repeated endlessly. Remain indoors, conserve heat. Await rescue. You knew better. At these temperatures, rescue vehicles couldn't move. Helicopters couldn't fly. On the 4th day, someone knocked on your basement window. Urgent, desperate. You frowned and signaled Tank to stay quiet. You climbed the ladder, peeked through a narrow gap. A woman, more precisely, a young influencer from upstairs, wrapped in a luxury mink coat, makeup smeared beyond recognition. You recognized her. Red sports car, always chin high. Never once looked at the weirdo in the basement. Now her face was blue-purple with cold, eyelashes crusted with frost. In her hand, a designer handbag, clutched like a lifeline. "I know you're home," she cried, voice shaking. "I saw the light. Please open the door." You said nothing. "I'm freezing. The heat's gone. The AC's dead. I have money. I'll pay." She held up the bag. $200,000 brand new. "I'll trade for food. Or just let me warm up, please." At minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit. A luxury bag was worth less than a chunk of coal. You cracked the window slightly. Cold air stabbed in. "Get lost." You slammed it shut and locked it. She stood frozen, stunned, mouth opening and closing uselessly. Then she stumbled away, hugging the bag that meant nothing now. You felt no guilt. Your space was limited. Your supplies finite. You couldn't afford dead weight, but you weren't completely closed off. On the second floor lived an old man, Frank, a retired paramedic, rumor said. Lost his left hand years ago on the job, kept to himself. Grew odd medicinal plants in the courtyard planters. On the 5th day, a note appeared in your vent. Pencil written firm. Frank, 2nd floor. I have dried mugwort and homemade frostbite salve. I see your exhaust still running. Trade for 2 batteries. You thought for a while. In extreme cold, after heat and food, medicine was life. Especially frostbite infection without hospitals meant death. Frank was smart. He knew you had power, and he offered a fair trade. You retrieved 2 refurbished 12V batteries, wired a small LED bulb to prove they worked. Half an hour later, you cracked the reinforced door. Frank stood in the shadows, grey coat wrapped tight, one arm holding a cloth bag. His lips were purple, but his eyes were sharp. No words wasted. Battery for bag. How long will these last? He asked. 3 days for light. 4 hours with an electric blanket. He nodded. This solves family made. Seals cracks, prevents infection, and burn the mugwort cleans air, adds warmth. Before leaving, he paused. The couple upstairs went quiet last night. 16th floor. Kids been crying non-stop. Be careful. People break faster than weather. He disappeared upstairs. You opened the bag. The herbal smell was strong. You tested the salve on your cracked hand. Warmth bloomed. A useful neighbor, you thought. Day 10. Outside temperature stabilized around minus 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough to freeze breath instantly. Your basement hovered just above freezing, but the chill seeped through the walls. Frost crept into corners. You wore thermal gear constantly. Fuel consumption was higher than planned. You cut generator runtime to 4 hours a day. The rest of the time, you and Tank lay together on the makeshift bed, wrapped in every blanket, listening to static-filled radio loops. Then came the real danger. Late one night, you woke to faint metal scraping. Too controlled for rodents. Someone was prying the outer security grill. You sat up instantly, holding Tank still. From beneath your pillow, you pulled a modified pneumatic nail gun low power. You moved silently to the door, nothing through the peephole, but you could hear breathing, more than one person. Sure it's this one, a man whispered. Diesel smell for days, doors sealed tight, must be warm. Forget the lock, use it. You smelled burning rubber. Smoke seeped in, a DIY smoke bomb. You smiled. Idiots. You flicked the switch to the industrial blower by the door. Instead of venting out, the modified impeller reversed. Negative pressure. Smoke halted, then blasted outward, coughing, screaming. What the hell? They slammed the door. Metal rang. Your heart pounded, but your hand stayed steady. You wired the door handle to a capacitor bank. A crude but lethal trap. The lock snapped. A gloved hand reached in. Now, you triggered the charge. Blue arc scream. Bodies collapsed. You opened the door and fired. Steel nails thudded into flesh. They fled, dragging the wounded. Cold kills faster than bullets. But Tank broke loose. Blood scent. He lunged. A shadow swung rebar. Tank screamed. You dragged him back, slammed the door, barricaded it. Under emergency light, you saw the gash, blood everywhere. You had no tools, no antibiotics. You cauterized with a heated blade. Tank convulsed. Infection followed. Fever, you sat on the floor shaking. You needed antibiotics. You knew where. 3 kilometers away, a community hospital. In this cold, 3 kilometers was the moon. You suited up, left Tank by the generator. Don't die, you whispered, and stepped into hell. The moment you stepped outside a building, it felt like entering a vacuum. The wind had stopped. That made it worse. The air itself was frozen. No movement, no sound, no birds, not even the distant creak of buildings shifting. The world had been muted. The outdoor temperature read -80 degrees Fahrenheit. If you removed your gloves, your fingers would snap like crackers in 10 seconds. Your breath no longer formed mist. It crystallized instantly into fine ice grains, rattling softly against your visor. You activated the mask heater. Visibility remained poor. The street was gone. Snow piled nearly 7 feet high, burying cars completely. Only the roofs of city buses remained visible. White islands in a frozen sea. You walked across compacted snow, each step deliberate. At the bus stop, you saw statues. They had once been people, frozen mid-weight, one staring at a phone, another hunched, stomping feet that would never move again. Their skin was grey-blue, eyes wide, pupils clouded like glass marbles. Ice encased them like museum exhibits. You didn't stop. At this temperature, sympathy killed. You focused on every step. The ground beneath the snow could be corpses or shattered glass. Your breathing was heavy, filtered air still carrying a metallic cold. Further ahead, a looted jewelry store glittered under pale sunlight. Gold chains scattered across snow, worthless, less useful than dog waste. At least that could burn. Your suit weighed nearly 50 pounds. Your thighs burned. Your lungs felt scorched. Then you heard scraping. You dropped behind the wreckage of a delivery truck. Through the wheel well, you saw 3 figures dragging a sled. On it, woven sacks. A child's pink snow boots stuck out. They carried axes and long knives. Their eyes were empty hunters. In a city stripped bare, people were meat. You waited until the sound faded. Sweat soaked your base layer dangerous. The hospital loomed ahead. Barricaded, ambulances blocked the entrance. Firelight flickered inside. It wasn't a hospital anymore. It was a tribe. 2 men with fire axes stopped you. White lab coats, stained dark. Entry fee, one sneered. You offered batteries. Their eyes lit up. Inside, the smell hit you. Disinfectant, waste, smoke, rot. People moaned on the floor. Strong men controlled the fires. The weak froze in corners. Upstairs, the pharmacy was guarded. A heavy man in a parka drank from a thermos. Antibiotics, you said. Human or vet? He laughed. Your suit. Strip it. I can fix your generator. You described the fault. He hesitated. And it you lied well. Former fire department contractor. They took you down. You fixed it in 20 minutes. Power stabilized. You got the meds and left before they reconsidered. The return was worse. Blizzard, 0 visibility. When you saw your building, black smoke rose. Your door was blown open. Inside, ruin. Supplies gone. Generator stolen. Frank lay dead. Tank. You found him crushed beneath debris, barely breathing. Rage froze your mind. Liquid nitrogen anger. They hadn't gone far. The underground mall. You treated Tank. Loaded weapons. Drone firebombs. You watched them celebrate. Your generator powered their feast. You launched. The fire ballooned. Then the gas tank detonated. The entrance collapsed. No escape. You felt nothing. Your home was unlivable. You loaded Tank onto a sled and walked into the storm. No destination until the radio crackled. Rescue Team 3 coordinates, 5 kilometers. Hope. You pulled forward into the white.